All right, here we go. It's a Friday night. Dave Cokin is here. We're going to get some new graphics, get the DC and the Sunshine Man graphic up there. But yeah, Cofield, and we've got special guest Willie Ramirez, longtime reporter around Las Vegas. We got a lot of cool stuff to get to tonight. We'll go into the vault and talk about Hank Aaron a little later on. I got some of my, I'm going to call them Cofield queries for both of you guys, especially Cokin, just some random questions I thought about today. We'll see if Dave shoots them down or if he's into them. So Willie was just, and Willie and I, every time we're on, we love talking old Vegas, what's left of old Vegas, Cokin as well. And Willie got me going in the pre-show. You were talking about going out to dinner tonight. Thanks for the invite, everybody. Because I think Adam Hill was there, and so was Vic Tafer. And it's one of the places I love because it's one of the, there's not that many old school Italian joints that, remain even from like the early 2000s.
Yep.
So where'd you go tonight?
Went to Casa di Amore on East Tropicana, and it is one of the originals. There's not too many that are original and that are still in the same place. Like you have Casa di Amore, Siena, which used to be on Trop and Eastern. Dave, you remember?
Yep.
And now they're on West Sahara, so it still has the same flavor, but it's all brand new. It's sparkling. They do the late night. They have the piano bar. They have an entertainment. The Italian American Club, Jimmy and Bob, who used to own Fellini's, and they still own the Tap House. They renovated and they sort of rejuvenated the Italian American Club. But it's very hard to find that old school, 80s flavor, 90s flavor, any place, whether it's Italian food or whatever, but that has the piano bar and that Vegas nostalgia. We talked a little bit about before the show, Herbs and Rye, which is a very popular spot. But that used to be the Venetian, which was an old school hangout. Dave, I'm sure you frequented that with Jim and then the boys back in the day probably after filming the shows or whatever. But Dave, chip in here with some of the old spots that you used to love frequenting.
Oh, I liked all of them. But one of my favorites was the Fireplace Lounge at the Peppermill, which wasn't for food. It was, if you go back far enough, I dated a lot of dancers. Okay. I was pretty good at knowing what not to do in strip clubs so that you had a chance to date the girls.
That's right.
And one of the things I can tell you is don't get lap dances.
That was the rule. That was the rule.
If you get lap dances, you're a customer.
Yes.
And they're not going out with you. Okay. They don't need to. But if you just hang out at the bar, little conversation here and there, do okay. So,
yep.
But I didn't exclusively date strippers, but with dancers, you really didn't have to go through a lot of the formalities. They knew what was up.
You're talking about the formalities on the back end.
Well, yeah, it's like, I really want to get to know you better and take you out for dinner and stuff like that.
No, not dinner, Dave. The classic line that they were used to was, "I just really I'd love to take you to lunch." That was that was the line the girls were used to hearing.
Yeah.
My classic, like Dave said, sit at the bar and ignore them. Mine was, you get a table and they would come up and you say, "No, you cannot sit on my lap. You can sit next to me, you can hang out, but you cannot. I don't want to dance, and you can't sit next to me. I mean, you can't sit on my lap, but you can hang out if you want." And
mine was
no lap dances, though. That was a rule, 100%. If you were going to date them, no lap dances.
Well, mine was, I'd sell them right away with, if we start off meeting that way, how am I going to respect you? and how are you going to respect me? It was a big word. Respect was a key word. But anyways, Peppermill, I'd met this girl who was a waitress in a restaurant that I frequented. And, nice girl, right? Just a nice girl, okay? And I thought there might be an attraction on her part, and there was definitely on my part. So I decided, okay, well, let's take her out. Take her out once, had a nice time. Took her out a second time, and it's like, okay, what am I going to do here? Because this is a different approach for me. This was a nice girl. So I said, you know what? I haven't been to the Peppermill for a while. Let's go there and hit the Fireplace Lounge after dinner. So I do that. And we weren't in there for like 5 minutes, and she basically just said, "It's okay. You really don't have to go through this. I'm ready to go." words to that effect, and so we
You
went.
don't have to go through this.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So it's like, okay, screw the formalities there, and off we went, and we had a nice couple of days.
Dave, when did you get here, or how long you been here?
I became an official Nevada. I got my first Nevada driver's license in 1981.
Okay, so you definitely frequented Spring Fever.
No.
Oh, I was.
Oh,
regular.
no. That's are you kidding? That's gross.
I was absolutely.
There is no chance.
19...
Believe me, I am not for people who don't know what Spring Fever is. It was a hot tub joint.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was called.
There's
Soak and Poke.
Chance.
It was the Soak and Poke.
Well, not for me. There was no way, no chance. And I'm not a germaphobe by any means, but there was no way that I was going to take any girl.
So
to a communal hot tub? No, not a chance.
So for the listeners, back in from the 80s through the early 90s, on East Sahara, just before Boulder Highway, on the right-hand side, there was and Sahara would break off. There was a side street, and both would end up on Boulder Highway. There was a place called Spring Fever, 21 rooms. You walked in, they were tiled out, and they had a hot tub in the middle, a bed off the wall, shower, bathroom, and it was exactly what it sounds like, and that's what it was there for, Soak and Poke. 2 of the 21 rooms were steam rooms. The other 19 had dry saunas. While I was DJing at Fuddy Duddy's and entertaining the ladies down from the Crazy Horse 2 down the street at Rizolo's joint, I definitely had a key to room 21 because the front desk host knew me, and I definitely frequented that place. There's no doubt.
I never went there. The whole idea is like, nah, I'm not going because I'm going to go. I don't know if they cleaned the room afterwards. I mean, it's not.
Well, there was a story.
No way.
There was a story, and I don't remember what year or what decade or when this fell, but there was a story about a high-ranking executive from Las Vegas who somebody saw him, and they were overseas, like in Asia or somewhere or another, but there were in one, like an Asian joint or like an adult joint where you'd walk in and you see films and whatever, but it was like here you see clips or whatever from Asia, but they're seeing it from America, and it was from Las Vegas, and supposedly it was from Spring Fever.
Huh.
And there were cameras inside certain rooms. And that was the beginning of the downfall. Now I don't know.
I didn't even know about that.
Yeah, no, that so.
Jeez.
And this had come out long after when I had when it was just 1 year. It was while I was DJing at Fuddy Duddy's, and I had taken a few females. Two were they didn't work in clubs. They were working off the beeper because, as you remember, Dave, that back in the late 80s, early 90s, you had the big gray brick cell phones, or you had a beeper, and you were running around town with a roll of quarters in your glove compartment, and you were pulling off on payphones. So
I remember the big brick
gray phones, yeah.
And if you dropped it,
yeah,
that was it. That was the end of that phone.
Those were the good old Vegas days. The days when there were no nightclubs and hotels, and there was Tramps and Shark and Premier and Botany's and
Okay,
Fuddy-Duddy's.
I have forgotten the name of this place. Maybe you can help me out. East Side. Was a late night. It was a late night place, bar, and I can't remember the name of it. It was off Maryland Parkway, and everybody used to go there.
Maryland and what though?
I don't remember. I've forgotten.
Because UNLV up and down Maryland, so it
wasn't on Maryland Parkway.
Oh, okay.
I can't remember it. It'll eventually come to me. Somebody mentioned Red Rooster, and the Red Rooster was a swingers.
That was a swingers club. That was
it might still be there, for all I know.
Trop in Maryland, I think.
No. Red Rooster was way out on Boulder Highway. It was in the middle of nowhere.
Okay. Yeah, that
was an interesting place. Went there.
Never been there. That was before my time. I mean, I was hitting the clubs back then, but never frequented the
I
Red
had-
Rooster. I would say we were hitting the nightclubs.
There was a girl I knew who, and I had never thought to go there, and she was the one who suggested it.
Yep.
I wasn't going to turn that down.
Willie, the Red Rooster is Trop past Boulder back toward. You have to drive back towards Sam Boyd, and the only reason I know that
It's way out there.
because
And
Dave
at that time, there was nothing out there.
David mentioned it, and I was like, "Where the fuck is this place?" David mentioned it in a story that we told. I probably off the air, maybe on the air on DC and the Sunshine Man, and I was like, "Wow, okay."
No,
Hey, real quick, hold on.
I can tell you the story I told because I only went there one time, and neither one of us found the place particularly attractive. It did not live up to expectations. We met another couple there. We ended up going bowling at Sam's Town.
That's what it was. That's what it was. It was swingers clubs. Dave's like, "Let's go bowling."
Oh yeah, we did. We gotta get out of here. So the place was sorry. It was
Sam's Town was kind of like the
unbelievable.
East Side locals joint. Like when the Gold Coast emerged in the late '80s, Sam's Town was kind of like that on the East Side because there was no Boulder Station, no Sunset Station. Yeah, Willie and Jose's. You had, there's the Lounge Acts. The Lounge Acts were big back in the '80s. That was a big deal. '80s and off of the '70s with Rickles at the Sahara, but then in the '80s came in and you had like Jonathan and the Music Magic. You had Sergio Alberti at the Riviera. You had certain lounge acts that were very popular and blew up, and that was a big deal. And then you hit the clubs, or I think we talked about this, or I think I was just in the chat room and you guys were on the show, but we talked about Plating and Sam's before it was a strip club. Randy Keepers had that. It was a great jazz joint with Tex and Kathy. That was a fantastic spot. So there was a lot of great lounge things were the big deal that once you were over the whole nightclub scene.
Yeah, and I'm not kidding about this. I was unaware that Playing Against Sam's had transformed from a jazz club into a strip club, and I went in there on a Sunday night, expecting to have a couple of drinks and listen to some music because I've always been a jazz fan, and was rather surprised when I walked in. It's like what happened?
Yeah. Because that was and the thing was, it was a great spot. Like it was.
Oh yeah.
It was like, it was like watching, if anybody's in here in the chat room, you watch the movie Mo Better Blues with Denzel Washington that Spike Lee made. Like it was that type of like for Vegas, that was the jazz club back in the late 80s. Early, yeah. Tex and Kathy were the house. And it was right when Rio opened and the Ipanema Lounge was kind of cool, right before Club Rio opened. So there wasn't a lot of that, like a jazz bar. There were a couple of speakeasies here and there. Capozzoli's might have been one of the. Remember Capozzoli's, Dave?
Yep.
On Maryland, that was one of the old school joints. I mean, those are some good old days.
Capozzoli's.
Yeah.
Capozzoli's burned down, didn't it?
The fire, yeah. They had the fire there. Yeah, okay. It's a big mistake. I think this is a commercial for Spring Fever. I've watched this before, but for the audience. And maybe Willie will remember that. I'm pretty sure this is a commercial that was posted about 6 years ago for Spring Fever. See if I can get it to play. It's Willie.
It might be. If the guy's got long hair, it's me.
Nice. Like affordable hourly rates.
Yeah.
Let's do it. That's it. Just some softcore porn. Oh yeah. There it is. Boulder Highway at Sahara. That's awesome.
Hitting me in the heart, in the feels. I'm in my feels.
I love it.
What was the other swing club was?
And
that wasn't a swing club. That was just but
Green Door.
Yeah, Green Door, Red Rooster. That was a place where you was swinging.
Right. I never
Spring
got there.
Fever, you were taking someone there or a couple, whatever, but you were going into a room to do what you got to do. The other places were actually swing clubs, so, and I get it. I mean, they're all friggin' nasty, but of course, but
Red Rooster was the tackiest place I've ever been in my life.
I'd never been there.
I mean, they had, red lamps and I was just like, oh my God. It was in a house. It was in a big house.
The Red Rooster was?
Yeah.
What was I thought there was a place between Maryland and Eastern on Trop on the right-hand side. I thought there was some place over there when I was younger. No?
I can't remember it. Might well be, but I've forgotten some of the places over the years. Just like I can't remember the name of the bar I'm thinking about, which was a restaurant upstairs and the bar was downstairs. And
the place you were asking me to remember,
I can't think of it.
The only three places I remember on Maryland when I started hitting the clubs, I graduated in 1986, in May of 86. And by August, I was getting into tramps. And here's what's crazy. Let's put cost and economy in perspective here. I would leave my house on Flamingo and Rainbow when I lived in Spring Valley at 17 years old. I would go across the street and pull out $40 from the ATM. I would drive down to Flamingo and Arville, where there's now the Bourbon Street Cafe. That was tramps. There was no Palms. There was the AM, PM, and nothing past that. There was the Gold Coast, and there was dirt from Arville down to the 15. Right. And the only thing left was the Gold Coast. No Rio. There was that power plant for Nevada Power there. I would palm the 20 into Woody Germany's hand. He was the head security bouncer manager at Tramps. The other 20 would last me all night because Long Island iced teas in a tumbler were $4. The other dollar was a tip. The tequila girl walked around with the holsters with the tequila, and they had to buy their bottles for like $30. And when it got to the end and they had this much left, they could not return. They had to return an empty bottle. So they'd come up to me and my boys and they'd be like, hey, we got to get rid of this. And they just pour us the shots to get rid of them. So we would do the shots for free. Then they go get their other bottle. So from, let's say, midnight to 4, I would be able to buy one Long Island iced tea over 4 hours, drink tequila for free. The entire night would cost me $40 to go to Tramps. And this was like in 1986.
This thing is, it's bothering. I can't remember this restaurant. I'm gonna have to get a hold of Greg Haugen.
The only thing I remember on Maryland Parkway back then was like there was Sports Pub, there was the Stakeout, there was something Allen Eddie's or Eddie's Big Eddie's, or there was a place. Sharippa actually is the one that brought up. There was a place. Steven Sharippa during our Zoom, he brought up a place that was on Maryland Parkway. I just went over by UNLV. I don't remember it. And the only other place I remember was Troppa, Maryland, was Moby Grape.
I remember.
And I never went in there.
Moby Grape used to do a big business. I'll find out the name of this restaurant bar because Greg Haugen and me used to hang out there. Greg, the former lightweight champion of the world, good guy. He's in Washington now. And the place, this was a little before you, Willie, would have been State Street. That was the sophisticated. The sophisticated late night place.
Yeah, Gianni Russo.
Johnny Russo, and that's what
Godfather. I valeted park, and that's where I got my first DJ gig ever.
Okay, so do you remember the celebrity fight that would take place on a almost nightly basis? There was Johnny Russo and Dionne Warwick, who were dating. They were dating. Yes, and once the alcohol kicked in, oh boy.
That was before I turned 18. So he opened that. And here's what's crazy. Across from State Street, State Street runs from Karen to Maryland Parkway, and it was on the outskirts. The entrance was on the outskirts of the commercial center.
Exactly, right. Where, if you didn't know it was there, you couldn't find it.
Yes. And across the street was the Palms Apartments where I grew up. When I turned 18, because Gianni knew my family, I started valet parking. And then I met the DJ on the nightclub side of State Street because there was a restaurant and a nightclub, Ronrico. And I was like, hey, I always wanted to be a DJ. He said, come on in after your shift. So I got done valeting at midnight, went into the nightclub, started DJing, and then he hired me as a mobile disc jockey, and I would go around and DJ weddings and whatever. But that's how I got my start as a DJ. Very first place I worked in terms of the nightclub industry was State Street as a valet parker and a DJ. And Gianni Russo was a family member, like in terms of like he knew we were family.
Food was good there.
Yeah.
I mean, you could get a really nice New York strip steak. It was not terribly expensive, and it was a really good spot. I was very disappointed when that ended.
And if you remember back then in Commercial Center in that time, Commercial Deli and Gino's Deli. Remember Gino's Italian Deli at the other end, and Commercial Deli was at the other end, and those were the two spots. I mean, and the original Villa Pizza that Carmine brought here in 1974 opened in Commercial Center.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Across from Town Pump Liquor, around the corner from the original skating rink.
Right. Commercial Center was for those who go way back, Commercial Center was basically where all the locals went.
Yeah. Pat's Chinese.
You had all kinds of stores and shops and stuff like that. There was a pool hall.
Q Club. Q Club is still there.
Okay, yeah. Is it still there? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it was fun. That's where all the locals would hang out because the tourists didn't know about it and they didn't go there. So if you lived here, that's where you went. George
Eiferman's Health Club was there. Pat's Chinese, the Playland Central. In 1981, DJ Frankie opened the City. Steve Sharippa was in there. He was helped bounce there. I mean, that Commercial Center was like classic in '81. That was the spot.
Yeah,
there were all kind of places in there. Like I said, the original Villa Pizza. The first time Villa Pizza hit Las Vegas and people got a taste of New York style Italian pizza was in that place. Yes, absolutely.
Nice. that was a roll. That was a roll. I love it. I love it. I love the spring fever thing. Willie's like, I love that place. Dave's like, I would never go there. Like, all right. I get it. All right, let's.
Maybe I'm more of a germaphobe than I thought. It's just
but Dave said that he'd been to Red Rooster. I'd never been to that place.
Well, yeah, but we kind of left pretty quickly.
You left.
I mean, we saw. I don't know how graphic I should get here.
Get graphic.
Okay, so we were walking around the place. Me and the girl. Her name was Patty. She was Asian. I don't remember. I think she was from Thailand. And so all right, let's look around. And we go in this one room, and there's a couple going at it, and there's just a bunch of guys standing around, I don't know, whacking their willies, I guess is, sorry to borrow your name.
I love it.
And it's like, that wasn't for me, certainly, and she didn't like it either. And that's when we met this other couple, and they didn't like it. So we kind of exited fairly quickly out of there. And we went bowling.
I feel like I need to go Larry King here because anyone else would be like, give us more details on the club. Larry King would be like, how'd you bowl? Did you break one? Either. Did you break 150, Dave?
I'm sure I did. I was a pretty good bowler back then.
Were you?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I used to at one time, and it's not outrageous, but I carried 180s, 190s as an average. So that's pretty good.
We've talked about this before. I know we have back on the old show. You threw a hook, right?
Yeah, I used a fingertip, Manhattan rubber, black ball.
No thumb?
There was a thumb.
Did you use the thumb? Well, there are people who don't use I used the thumb. I was bowling for a while.
I threw a pretty good hook.
Wouldn't use the thumb.
Not a bad breaking ball.
All right. Look at Dave. Very athletic. Very athletic. Dave, you missed about 3 weeks.
I thought it was good until the very first whatever the competition was we had, and Mitch Moss went out and almost threw a perfect game, and it's like, all right.
It's one of my great sports defeats. The guy went out and he rolled in our old man triathlon. He rolled like a career high. I think he had like a 654 or something serious.
Oh, he was phenomenal.
Yep.
Hey, and I wasn't. I mean, it was just like I'm getting buried here.
Yep.
I throw like, I don't know, a 540 set and just got absolutely annihilated.
By the way, Dave, you and I won. We won.
We won the cut. Yes.
I bowled about the same thing. I probably bowled somewhere in the 500s, and the rest of the Paul Howard was like Adam Hill too, like with the Flintstone, baby tiptoe step up and then drop it all slow and shit. So Mitch actually crushed everyone, but his team still couldn't win.
He threw like a 260 something.
Yeah.
The first game, it's like, oh Jesus, this guy's good. I had no idea. Freaking sandbagger.
Night of all nights.
Hey, I'm gonna have to come to the defense of Dave here on Brady's comment. He said Dave's been in women dirtier than the water at Spring Fever. Let me tell you something, Brady.
First of all, you're way off, Brady.
First of all, if you came from Vegas in the 70s or 80s, the Spring Fever water was dirty, but the strippers back then and the ladies of the evening and the girls is a lot different, and It's not as it seems, and we've
No,
all been. It's
I'll
not just
say
Dave.
it
We've
like this.
all been there.
The
If you were
girls
in
who-
if you were in the night scene, or you were in that scene whatsoever, the nightclubs or whatever, or the industries that mixed and meshed, we've all been there, and they were far from dirty in the
No,
80s and 90s. They
girls
were
back then,
classy. Yeah,
they first of all, they didn't come here for the weekend from L.A. Okay, these were girls who they all lived here.
yeah,
They didn't have the roster size that I would assume they do now,
that's right.
and it was just and they didn't hook.
No,
I mean, there's maybe a few who did, but they mostly just showed up to work, did their thing.
they were hustlers. They hustled.
Yeah, I mean, their vice was, I mean, if they had a vice, it was that a lot of them were just serious into video poker and shit like that, and would blow the night's pay in the casinos after work. But that
well, when
you
Dave,
don't have to be a dancer to fall into that trap.
But when we first got started in this town, I mean, video poker had just, if it did, like Gold Coast was one of the first times I seen video poker come alive. I mean, I remember going to, do you remember the place on Industrial was it Sixes and Eights? Was that what it was called? It was like a little construction bar type. I want to say it was called Sixes and Eights. But
I know the
video
place you're
poker
talking about. I don't remember the name.
It was just getting started. And the girls back then, like so Dave in the sports handicapping industry, and he was on USA Network. I mean, and DJs and I was DJing or dancers, whatever you were in. If you were dating strippers or you were seeing strippers, you were seeing strippers that weren't hooking. They were hustlers. They were doing their thing, and they were making money, and they didn't have to hook. They weren't dirty. Doesn't mean that there weren't dirty hookers out there. There were ladies of the evening, absolutely. But guys like us, they were like part of us. They were part of our circle. They were part of our crew. We all hung out. We went to the clubs, Tramps, Elephant Bar, Premier,
the Elephant Bar,
Stakeout. Yeah, remember the Elephant Bar? The Brewery. Jubilation was before Shark Club. Botany's. Those were nightclubs where you would never know that they were strippers or dancers. They were just part of the crew, part of the clan. They were not ladies of the evening that were giving it up. They didn't have to. Back then, they did not have to. This town was small and intimate. And from January to March, when that convention season hit, they were making bank because guys just wanted to see girls dancing. And in the 80s, that was fascinating. Now we're in 2020, 2021, and so there's a lot more, obviously, that guys are expecting or that they've seen in social media and everything that's evolved in OnlyFans and all this other shit that's taking place. Back then, girls didn't have to do that. The classy ones, they didn't have to. They were hustlers, just like guys are hustlers. They were on top of their game. And those were the types of women that I didn't know Dave back then, but I know those are the types of women that Dave hung out with. Those are the types of women that I hung out with. And it was just part of the game, and we knew our game. Like Dave said, you walked in, the rule, number one rule when you walked in a strip club in the 80s and 90s, if you were on how we were running shit, rule one, no lap dances, period. And that was step one.
They didn't have lap dances in a lot of the places at that time.
What's
the original Crazy Horse, there were no lap dances.
Yeah,
girls would stand across from you.
Yeah.
I think Cheetahs might have been the first lap dance place.
Cheetahs Crazy Horse 2 before Cheetahs opened, because my first time I went into was Crazy Horse 2 on Industrials. On Industrial. That was my introduction to strip clubs. I was 18 years old, went in there with a dude named Dave Robinson, and we hit Crazy Horse 2. Cheetahs opened up, and after I met my son's mom and we dated, whatever, but when we split, Cheetahs, I resurfaced back to the strip clubs. I went to Cheetahs, and I'll never forget the crew that I was going into Cheetahs with. You remember, Dave, you'll remember this because he worked as a salesman in Jim's room, was a dude named Perfecto. Remember the dude?
Shit, I remember. He was crazy.
Yeah, he was Psycho Shyster.
What is going on? Perfecto.
Perfecto
Babadilla.
He was from New Orleans.
He opened this big phone room, and he had brought me aboard to do
We were
marketing.
neighbors.
and the TV. So I went. So on Mondays we'd end up at Cheetah's. Well, these guys would get sloshed and hammered. I would scoot down the street to Spearmint Rhino when it very first opened, and it was small and intimate. And I would tell these guys, this place is going to be popping. I'm telling you, it's going to blow up. It already looked sort of to the next level. It was all, Cheetah's, Gallardi didn't give a shit. He just, it was what it was. You walked into Cheetah's and you walked past the first doors, there was this wall. If you went to the right, there was a VIP room.
Right.
If you went to the left, there was a hallway, and it went to the office, and on the left, there was a private decked out bathroom. But basically, the VIPs went in there to do coke and take care and go to the bathroom.
Cheetah's had if you knew your way around Cheetah's, you were familiar with what's stage 5.
Yes.
Okay, that wasn't a real stage.
Yes.
How about Perfecto? Jesus.
Yeah,
We were actually pretty good friends. And
he was out there, but the bottom line, he knew how to make money, he opened that big ass room, and we used to go out every Monday night, and he'd walk out with like 10, 12, 15 grand in his pocket from the Monday night rush, and we'd all go there, and he'd be handing out whatever money. And again, my rule was I would never dance, but I was like, hey, Perfecto, let me get 100. Let me get 100. By the end of the night, he had given me $600-$700 bills. I was never getting dances. So I was just pocketing the cash.
His pool parties were epic. Is all I can tell you.
Yeah.
Absolutely incredible. God, that's going back around. That's early, very early 90s, probably 91, 92. And then all of a sudden, he was just gone.
No, when I was hanging out and he opened that big phone room on Pecos and Flamingo, it was 2000. I know that for a fact. And was
he still here then?
Yes, it was 2000.
I got to to be honest with you, he was so far out there. It's like I think I better pull away from this guy because something bad.
No, that was absolutely.
He was
smart. It was him, Danny Monaco, a couple other guys, and he had this big phone room for one football season. That was it. And he built thousands and hundreds of thousands. And he basically, to be honest with you, he probably was one of the ones that brought an end to the phone rooms and ended the legitimacy of what you guys were trying to do.
I wouldn't doubt that.
And but he would come out with 10, 15 grand in his pocket, whatever. And I remember this dude, he would go to he'd get a room at the Venetian or whatever, and blackened windows, put the curtains up, and with 8 balls galore. And
that's
girls.
Part of the reason I kind of, because there was
he was wild.
I don't need to be around this much drugs, especially since I wasn't a fan of cocaine.
It was wild. It was wild. This was some.
This is hilarious. I mean, we know this all went on. So I used to joke with Dave all the time on DC and the Sunshine Man about the Shark Club and just the fucking piles of powder, and that's kind of where we left off. And I didn't know about Perfecto. Jesus.
Oh, he was unique.
Perfecto was after the Shark Club.
Yes.
Okay.
I was after the Shark Club. I can tell you stories about now the Shark Club. Before I got into journalism, I was still finding my way, and I was working for the state's only black newspaper, for the Las Vegas Sentinel Voice, and I was learning the trade. I decided college wasn't for me. I was all into DJing and girls and strippers, and I was partying at the Shark Club. Like I said, 86, I was 17 years old. I was getting into nightclubs. I was walking by a line of people at Tramps, and people that were 22, 23 that knew me, asking me to get them in, and I'm 17. 18 years old, Shark Club opened. Now, you got to remember, the Shark Club used to be Jubilation, which was my uncle's joint, which was Paul Anka's Jubilation. And in the 70s, it was Jubilation and the brewery.
Where was that?
That was on East Harmon.
Right across from the Aladdin.
Yes, it was across the street from the Performing Arts Theater. And all
same,
it was on
same
that
side
road.
of the strip as the Aladdin.
Opposite side of the Aladdin. On Harmon.
It was on the same. They're both on the east side of the boulevard.
Oh yes. East side, but on the opposite side of Harmon.
Shark Club, and then a gigantic parking lot, and then the Aladdin.
Yes, and then there was the Carriage House, and on top was Randy Kiefer's.
Shit! I know Randy. Oh,
Kiefer's. It was a steakhouse on top.
I can't remember the name of it.
Jubilation portrayed on the Vegas show. Then Chart. No,
was Randy
actually
Kiefer's second story? Randy Kiefer's.
No, it was
that was out
the
on
roof.
Jones.
It was on the roof.
Different place.
Let me just correct Jim. So, Jim, Jubilation was portrayed on Vegas's pilot show, season 1, episode 1, and it was still Jubilation. It was not Shark then, because Vegas came. That show, I believe, was in 1978 or 79, and it was still Jubilation. People tend to forget between Jubilation and Shark. It was called Bayshore Nightclub for a brief time.
Shark opened in what? Maybe 84, 85?
84, 85 was Bayshore, and then
Shark
Club was 86.
Okay, all right.
Yes. There was this brief little time where somebody bought it from the outfit from my uncle and the outfit from Chicago, which included the linebacker from the Bears, Doug Buffone. And then the Bayshore opened it, or this group opened the Bayshore, and then it opened as the Shark Club, and then that kind of transitioned nightclubs, and then we had the Mets where the light shows and everything was going all crazy, and then all of a sudden they had the Palladium on Industrial, and the next thing you knew we had Studio 54, and then Club Rio, and then Studio 54, and then it was all over after that.
Right. And a lot of the other clubs started to undergo changes. Botany's wasn't quite what it was. What was the place on Tropicana around
Chaz? It was on Trop and like near just before Eastern. There was a place.
It was between Maryland Parkway and Eastern.
It was called Chaz, and after that, it was called the Hop.
The Hop. That's it. The Hop.
But before the Hop,
really hot for a while.
Yes, before the Hop, it was called Chaz, and Chaz was actually popping, and it was a rival of Shark. And someone just put the beach. The beach.
No, the beach was
on Paradise, and it used to be after that. It was that sports book.
Right. No, it was before that. The beach.
Right. The beach was after that. Excuse me. You're right.
Sport of Kings.
Sport of Kings.
Was the race and sports book, and they took track odds and went broke. Which was these guys
runner, didn't
wherever they were.
Runners, the runners in the sports, the groups take that shit out. That and remember Tom Sunset Casino? Which professional sports group took down? Dave, you would remember this. Tom Sunset Casino, when Perry Swanson was running it. Didn't some sharps take that shit down off one big play? It just wiped it out. Do you remember Tom Sunset Casino?
Yes, but
I thought it was like
I don't remember what happened there. I know the Landmark sports book actually ended up closing. I
DJ'd at the top of the Landmark
because of the this group they were putting up their own hockey lines, and this group from Canada that knew their stuff came in and just beat the shit out of them one winter for a lot of money, and they just shut down the book after that.
Adam says he comes from the beach generation. Dude, the beach was a meat market. When the beach opened up, it was all over after that. I mean, that was
talking about hot girls.
Yes, that was it.
It was a toss up. Hottest girls, the beach, or the original crew of Cocktail Girls at the Rio.
Oh man,
colorful and
yes, there was. I'll never forget. If you was an original that went to the Rio. Wait a minute. If you were original that went to the Rio, and you went to the Ipanema Lounge.
Yes, exactly.
There was a light-skinned girl. There was a cocktail waitress. She was one of the originals, and her name was Perry. And I don't give a shit if you knew who Perry was. It was hands down all over. You were going to the Rio to see Perry, and the Ipanema Lounge. You hung out. Fuck the Club Rio and fuck the Voodoo Lounge. You were hanging out in the Ipanema Lounge just because
it was perfectly situated because it was right just there. Off the casino. You could sit there and just watch everything walk by. And the girls, those cocktail outfits are the best in the history of Las Vegas. Yep, and all the girls were gorgeous. Absolutely. I mean, really, just flat out drop dead beautiful.
Yeah, and those are long before my professional days, so I ain't afraid to admit it. There are plenty of fucking non-sleep, motherfucking 16th and 8-ball runs that I spent the entire weekend through nightclubs, played against Sam's in the Rio Sportsbook, hanging out, betting fucking sports, doing blow, and drinking fucking liquor. You got it. Because the Rio was the shit. A lot of beautiful cocktail waiters. We're talking late 80s, early 90s, Dave.
Well, what they did was they basically recruited the best-looking cocktail girls from the other joints around town.
Yeah.
And they just went there.
And the wait and the cocktail waitress uniforms, the thing was they were not risque, but they were a step up from what you were used to, and they were
there was a lot of cleavage and
there was just revealing enough.
A lot of cleavage and a lot of butt cheeks.
A lot of just a revealing enough but still classy.
We
Because
used
the
to- we
girls
used to
they
have
got
laughs.
were
We used to have laughs though, because I'd be hanging out there with my friends, and we would say, "Okay, can you imagine?" Because we went to all the other places, the old school places as well, and some of the places. Well, we'll bring up the Stardust for one. The Stardust basically
real girls.
there were women, there were cocktail waitresses who were there in the '90s that had been there when the place opened, and they looked awful in those outfits.
Wait, I'll be right back.
We would just try and picture them in the Rio outfits, and it was like, oh my God, that could be the most disgusting thing yet. The Rio was awesome back then, absolutely awesome.
Boy. Dave, I'm completely afraid to go off this train of reminiscing and go to Hank Aaron, but you want to do it for a couple minutes?
Oh my God.
Well, I don't have a segue.
Talk about from what we're talking about to like one of the classiest guys who ever played sports in this country or any place else.
So I want to, if folks don't know, Hank Aaron passed away today at 86, and I wanted to play not only so we can get the description of the moment from Dave, but also the play-by-play call of Vince Scully, because it's pretty fucking amazing, like how composed he was.
Fastball is a high drive into deep left center field. Buckner goes back to the fence. It is gone. What a marvelous moment for baseball. What a marvelous moment for Atlanta and the state of Georgia. What a marvelous moment for the country and the world. A black man is getting a standing ovation in the Deep South for breaking a record of an all-time baseball idol. And it is a great moment for all of us, and particularly for Henry Aaron, who was met at home plate not only by every member of the Braves, but by his father and mother. He threw his arms around his father, and as he left the home plate area, his mother came running across the grass, threw her arms around his neck, kissed him for all she was worth.
So that was a great call for a lot of reasons. Obviously, a great moment. By the way, you could see Craig Sager grabbed his mother, like behind that final scrum. He's trying to get the interview as a young Cub reporter. So, Dave, you and I were talking about this today on Cofield and Company, and you don't remember watching it live, right?
I don't know if I saw it live or not. I know I saw it that night. It's possible I saw it live, but I don't recall. It's almost 50 years ago. So, but it was an incredible night. I never saw Babe Ruth play, obviously, but Aaron chasing him down and the arguments that were going on in the sports world. We didn't have social media back then, but let's just say there were a lot of guys who would now be in my age group where I am now with my skin tone. It's a phony record. He look at the number of at-bats he had. He wasn't a pitcher for 5 years. Yeah, okay. Yeah. The guy was an incredible player. He did everything. Great hitter. And he wasn't a big guy. I mean, it was all wrists. He used to talk about it was all in the wrists. But what a classy guy, too. That was the thing. I don't know how anybody rooted against him. He's what you'd hope any professional superstar could be on and off the field. And he maintained that for his entire life.
Yep. And what he had to go through the last couple of years to accomplish it, incredible, right? A lot of these jabronis now have kind of crawled out of the woodwork to show their true colors. That was their parents back then. That was their uncle. That was their mother, whatever, their grandfather. Writing them letters, racial slurs, threatening to freaking kill them. Yep.
And I've seen interviews with him where he talks about how he grew up and where he grew up. And man, oh man, I mean, this country's not perfect, but boy, oh boy, I mean, imagine I can't have no perspective on it. I didn't grow up in anything like that. None of us did, really. I mean, it's just talk about facing prejudice on a daily basis. Just because of the color of your skin, but not just bias in the workplace and stuff like that. Just in living it on an everyday basis. It was horrible.
When I was, at my age, at that time, when sort of, baseball cards, I compare it to base. That's the first thing I thought of when I saw that on social media early this morning that he had passed. Very first thought I had was Topps baseball cards. And when I lived in those apartments across from State Street that we spoke of earlier, and I used to walk into Commercial Center, there was now it's all an Asian commercial centers, all, Asian shops, whatever. There was one little convenience store or whatever, little market. And we used to go there to buy 10 cents. It cost a dime to get baseball cards. But I think of Hank Aaron in that era of collecting baseball cards. And at that time in the late 70s, Reggie Jackson was the star, the premier black baseball player. But at my age, when you were watching the Dodgers, Yankees, 78, 79, or 77, 78, 79 with the Pirates with Stargell and Parker and that era, you were watching those guys, but it was embedded to have an appreciation for who Hank Aaron was. Hank Aaron and Lou Brock are the two guys I remember I was after their era, and Lou Brock was still playing a little bit. He was toward the end, but you had already moved on to the Yankees and the Dodgers and the Big Red Machine, but you had an appreciation. You had learned to have an appreciation for those guys. It was almost like, you have to, and don't get me wrong, you had to know, if you were going to follow sports, or you learned about, who the greats were, DiMaggio's, the Yankees, and Jackie Robinson, so on and so forth. But for that era, the immediacy coming out of one and into the other. So that's what I thought of this morning was baseball cards and Hank Aaron, and learning about him while I was collecting baseball cards in the 78 and 79 Top Series. And learning about Hank Aaron there, and just always remembering that you had to have an appreciation for who he was and what he brought to the game, and sort of, evolved and elevated that game and the home run king. You know what I mean? So that's what I thought of this morning.
So who's left? Willie Mays?
Willie Mays had I believe
there's not many of those guys left now.
Statement, yeah.
Willie Mays, Koufax. Not many guys left from that. And Willie Mays actually, in a sense, predated Aaron. Yes and no. But Willie Mays was a lot better known nationally because he played in New York.
Willie Mays was a lot more better known than Hank Aaron, or he's a lot better.
No, he was better celebrated.
So, okay, yeah.
Well, he played in New York, and Willie Mays was, I think, the most colorful player in the game because he was just amazing, spectacular stuff. Aaron was almost like workman-like guy.
Yeah,
there wasn't anything fancy about Hank Aaron, but Mays was just, he'd make unbelievable catches, the basket catches, in the outfield, and Mays is, in my opinion, the best all-around player who ever played the game.
Yeah.
That's just my opinion, but I don't think there's anybody who ever did the ultimate five-tool guy was Willie Mays.
Yeah, no, I can see that. And, and Hank Aaron was that blue-collar worker. I mean, he just did it. He just went out and did his job. And
plus he played in Milwaukee, and Atlanta. And Atlanta then was not what Atlanta is now. So he didn't get, you didn't have every game on every night. Mays was with the Giants in New York, and then of course they moved to San Francisco. But by the time he moved to San Francisco, he was already a household name, and he just was a way more outgoing personality, the say hey kid.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm glad he's still around. Better than Mike Trout? Are you asking if Willie Mays is better than Mike Trout? I would say yeah.
Yes, I would say yeah. And Henry Aaron is like, he's been more celebrated, and obviously the home run king. Still consider him the home run king.
I do.
He's the home run king.
I do. I'm
but
sorry. And I don't look, Barry Bonds is one of the best players I ever saw. But in my mind, I'm knocking 10% of his home runs off for the steroids. And so for me, Henry Aaron is still the home run king.
Answer this question for me. I asked this on the air, but I wonder from you guys. Do you think when Barry Bonds saw Hank Aaron die, do you think there was any part of him, about the whole home run king thing today where he was like, fuck, maybe I shouldn't have done it. Maybe I shouldn't have done it. Now I feel bad. Hank doesn't have the honor because I did what I did to get it.
Well, the thing is, though, that Hank Aaron still does have the honor in the minds of so many. And I don't know whether that'll be the case down the road when everybody that my age group is dead. But in my age group, I honestly believe the majority of us in my age group consider Aaron to be the home run king.
Yeah, I don't think
somebody else is going to have to come along and break his record.
I don't think that Barry Bonds thought to himself, I shouldn't have taken steroids. But what I do think is that there was a thought process in his mind that understood why so many people still consider him and said RIP to the true home run king. Like, I don't think that he disputed that in his mind. I don't think that he sat there with animosity toward the people that revere Hank Aaron as the home run. I don't think that. But I also don't think that he thought to himself, wow, I feel bad. I shouldn't have done that. I took his record. No, I don't think that, because there's too much ego involved. And he was competing against an era where there was a large population that I don't think that he feels bad about it.
No, I do believe the one thing I do believe about Barry Bonds is that he started doing it because everybody else was doing it. And he's like, the competition is passing me by.
Yeah.
That's just the way it was. So, I mean, he is officially the home run king, but in my mind, he's not. You can think what you want. That's the beauty of having your own mind. Is you can believe 2 and 2 is 5 if you want to.
Right.
Let me just interject real quick that they say everything comes in threes, and I don't know about the third, but let's not forget, as celebrated as Hank Aaron has always been, we just also recently lost a baseball great in Don Sutton.
Cameron Fletcher, I believe. Is Eddie Robinson still alive? I thought he passed away. No, he just turned 100. You're right. That's right. I mentioned something about it on Twitter.
From that era, we lost Don Sutton and Hank Aaron in the last week?
Yeah, Mays is now. Somebody wrote it. I didn't know that, but Mays is now the oldest living member of the National Baseball Hall of Fame. Didn't know that.
Huh. Interesting.
Well, I hope he hangs around for a while.
Do you know how many home runs Barry Bonds has for his career?
No.
See that? I mean, that's amazing. Who didn't know 755 growing up?
Right.
You knew the number.
That number I still know.
I said multiple times in the air today, I'm like, I don't know what he's got, 8 something, and he had 762 home runs.
I know 714 and 755.
Yep. You probably know Mays, right?
No.
I don't know.
6 something.
I think it's 660, but I said it on the air and I said it again. I didn't look it up. Someone could look it up for us. That would be awesome. Back to my point, though, about Bonds. I'm not mad at him for doing what he did. I just don't think his record is legit. And to the question here about McGuire, Sosa, Schilling ever got in the Hall. First of all, I don't think Schilling's a Hall of Famer, but I think everyone we'll get to it. Everyone from the steroid era, like I don't hold it against them. They were keeping up with the Joneses, and I think a lot of guys across baseball were doing it. And I don't get why some have been absolved of it and others it's like, oh well, they did it. Like
I'll tell you why. You want the answer?
The pass that Bagwell got, like it's good guy. He didn't do it. He didn't do it, huh? Okay.
I think the answer to that is personality.
Yep.
I do believe on his just eliminating everything that's happened after baseball. I think Curt Schilling is a Hall of Famer. I think the numbers justify him being there. And the reason he's not there is because, well, sorry if I offend anybody, but he turned into a raging asshole after baseball. Not just for his political views, but I mean
in general.
Well, I mean the thing with the business, whatever it was in Rhode Island, was not good, and he's kind of an outrageous guy, and he's rubbed a lot of people the wrong way. But here's the thing: I have always felt that Baseball Hall of Fame, any sports Hall of Fame, should be only about what you accomplished as a player or as a manager, or whatever. Nothing else should be taken into consideration. Because if it is, you're going to take some guys and throw them out of the Hall of Fame. I mean, Ty Cobb, we know Ty Cobb. There's no question that Ty Cobb was an extraordinarily racist person. So what are you going to do? I mean, Cap Anson as well. So what do? Throw them out? Well, no, you can't, because they're Hall of Famers based on what they accomplished. Now, I don't think Schilling is the ultimate super level of Hall of Famer, but I think he's clearly as good as some of the guys who are in there and believe that he should be in. Sosa, I am ambivalent about, and McGuire, I kind of put McGuire in the Maris category, where I think he had a few great years, but this is just my opinion, but I don't believe his entire body of work was Hall of Fame worthy. Now, there's a lot of people that disagree with that, but I don't care what he did off the field. That's just based on the field. So I put Schilling in, but I wouldn't attend his induction. I can tell you that.
Somebody tweet or commented, where's it at? I don't know where that. Why not have it? Oh, there it is. Why not have a steroid wing of the HOF? And I've heard that several times, including from Bob Costas.
You're going to have a racist wing as well?
Exactly. How
many wings do you want?
You cannot extend a branch, and then all of a sudden now you have to continue to extend. But I get your point. Bob Costas brought that up a long time ago, where, okay, so have this and with asterisks, but now all of a sudden you're going to have so many different asterisks as we continue to grow and time goes on with different.
And this is my argument on this goes solely to Pete Rose. I know what Pete did. Okay, I was friends with Pete. I maybe defended him when I shouldn't have, based on what he had told me at the time. I don't hold that against him. But the idea that Pete Rose isn't in the Hall of Fame is ludicrous. He's one of the best players who ever lived. Now, if you want to put something on the plaque, banned from baseball, whatever, that's fine. But his baseball accomplishments, I mean, shit, half his stuff is in the Hall of Fame. How's he not there?
Right.
If his stuff's good enough to be in the Hall of Fame, then he's going to be in the Hall of Fame. I just don't think that politics or off the field stuff is supposed to enter. It's kind of like this. Look, should O.J. Simpson be in the Football Hall of Fame? Yeah, of course. Doesn't mean he's in the Human Hall of Fame, but he's one of the best football players who ever lived, and that's all it's about.
And those other guys that aren't Pete Rose, everything they did affected the game of baseball, and that's the difference. And I agree wholeheartedly about Pete Rose.
Pete's one of the if you're making out a list of top 10 baseball players of all time, Pete's got to be on the list. Okay, he's one of the 10, and I strongly believe he's one of the 10 best players of all time. That's a Hall of Famer.
Yeah.
I don't care what he did off the field.
I don't think he's top 10, and I don't think he belongs in, but you and I have gone round and round on this. So,
part of the reason I thought he is, first of all, the hit king, but the number of positions he excelled at in the field is remarkable. I mean, it's like, Pete, we need you to play this position. All right, we need you to play this position. He's a phenomenal player. God, they had some great players in that team. I mean, that really was. You talk about a Hall of Fame team. That Big Red Machine was really something else.
Yeah. Griffey, Dreesen, Bitch, Morgan, Rose, Seaver, Foster. I mean, you could go on. And I mean, that team was phenomenal.
Cesar Geronimo was like the worst guy on the team, and he wasn't bad. So.
I say on both of these guys 1,000,000%. So.
Oh, I think Alex Rodriguez. Yeah.
Rodriguez, no doubt.
Without question.
I think they've put in way too many PED guys already to act like the guys who are out are any worse. And I also believe steroids were part of baseball back to
they were
probably 83 or 84. And there were probably a couple of guys who dabbled in the late 70s because, as we know, and it's been documented, the Steelers had guys all over their power positions who were fucking juiced to the gills, and they were using like your balls fall off steroids. So we can't track when it started. And the other thing is, there's this misnomer out there that if it's fucking name, I don't know, Glenn Bragg. Remember that guy from Cincinnati? The freaking cut off sleeves, and he looked like Willie with the arms and everything. Well, like not everyone gets like that. Pedro Martinez, for all we know, that's another way to excel when you're 5'11" and 160 pounds and you throw 99 miles an hour. I don't know what the fuck he was doing. Randy Johnson was a wispy build at 6'10". He certainly couldn't pitch until he was 28, right? That's when he started to excel. Like, what was he doing? Like, we don't know.
No. I've always drawn this parallel. It's I felt that it entered mainstream sports at the same time the wrestlers started to go from being just big fat guys to these incredibly chiseled athletes.
Right.
And that was in the 80s. Okay. And I don't follow wrestling, but I know that was in the 80s.
Oh, of course. Yeah, of course.
So
look at start to look at like the Angels in the early 80s. God damn it. Why am I? Oh, Brian Downing. Start to look at some of the builds and the fucking forearms and again, it was starting to get crazy. You could start to see those physiques. And obviously 87 was the year where it just exploded and you had, Wade Boggs hitting 24 home runs. Shortly after that, Brady Anderson.
I mean, no disrespect to Brady Anderson, but Brady Anderson went from being basically just an average-looking guy to all of a sudden Hulk Hogan hitting 50 home runs in one winter.
Yeah.
When you talk about the late 80s, I mean, isn't that when Canseco's book somewhat starts? I mean, that was the late 80s when the A's and the Dodgers had their, Canseco, McGuire, those were the day. I mean, that's somewhat ushering into the steroid era.
Willie, look at the roster and the build of some of the A's guys. You had guys all of a sudden, like Carney Lansford was a good hitter. And again, I don't want to smear everyone's name, but all of a sudden he was like, it's fucking gigantic. Mike Gallego was a tiny middle infielder, and he's out there and his friggin' pipes are all jacked up. I mean, again, would I have done it? Especially if it.
Oh, hell yeah. For millions with the money that was out there.
If it made me a quadruple A guy to a guy who could make, to be in the top 75 players. I would have done it.
Yeah. Look, we had a guy, and I can't remember his name. He was with the 51s for a while. And he said, look, I mean, I got passed because everybody else was doing roids and got bigger and stronger than I was, and I didn't do them. It cost himself a major league career. Yep. Would I have done it?
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
We know Giambi was here in town, so
yeah,
right, coming down the hill from whatever he was in Anthem, or I think it was Anthem at the time, but wasn't there? What was that?
Especially at that age.
Was it the Gold's Gym, Willie, right at Eastern? Wasn't there a Gold's Gym at Eastern in 215? I think it was right there that got kind of blown up.
It was, yes.
I thought that was Giambi's spot. So,
yeah.
And at that age, by the way, you don't think about side effects at that age.
No.
Well, and here's let me put a squash to a lot. I mean, yes, there are those side effects that men have to deal with when it comes to stories. But when you're talking about millionaires, and I say this from experience because I'll be right up front with everybody here. I tested, 7-8 years ago, low T from my doctor. And the very first time I ever tested low T, they tried to put me on the roll-on, the like deodorant, but it's not deodorant. It's just a roll-on. And it did nothing. It didn't raise my testosterone level. And I broke out in a fucking rash. And they eventually they said, well, if you can inject yourself, we'll put you on Cypionate. Well, if you look up Cypionate, it is on the banned substance list of every major sports league. But the thing is, if I'm not on the low T, I'm like dangerously low behind the average level for a 50-year-old man. So I have been on Cypionate to maintain. Forget about weightlifting or just bodybuilding, whatever it is, just going to the gym. That being said, these guys, these professional athletes, when they are doing what they're doing, it's not your typical steroid guys that are out there roided up, just fucking, roid rage and worried about their nut shrinking. They are being monitored by professional, personal athletic trainers that are monitoring their blood levels, monitoring their testosterone levels. They are coming off of certain cycles. They are taking a pregnancy hormone, HCG, which counteracts a lot of it, so it maintains their levels. So the whole part of worrying about their balls shrinking, those guys that have the money to take the HGH and the steroids and the testosterone, they're not worried about that shit because they have the money to counteract it and come off the cycles properly. Trust me. That's how it works. For me personally, on the testosterone, I have to get my blood level taken. I have to get that to just to make sure that my testosterone level is equal. But my doctor knows that I can't take anything else. I can't go above and beyond a multivitamin. These other guys, they're going above and beyond, but they're also having all their levels checked. So those misnomers about the bodybuilders that are getting in competitions that aren't drug tested, yeah, their balls are shrinking. Their dicks are shrinking. But professional athletes in football and baseball that are trying these drugs, they're doing it. I want to say this carefully. They're doing it properly in where they're getting their blood levels checked all the fucking time. They're having personal trainers check their blood levels and doing what they can. They're getting blood transfusions to try to strip their blood of the shit once it's into their muscles and stay clean at the same token, not be affected by it. There's ways of doing it. I remember, if you remember this, when the Ravens played the 49ers and Ray Lewis miraculously had his tricep fucking healed because he took deer antler, that was before deer antler growth was a banned substance. It was all about human growth at that time. But deer antler spray was a big deal on the underground. Yeah. So, I mean, there are different forms of that shit that these guys know how to fucking – they know how to get it in and out of their bloodstream.
Whatever's at that front, that cutting edge on the front end that's not discovered yet, of course you're going to try.
Yes, absolutely. Especially if you got the money.
Is it cheating? I don't know. I don't think it's cheating. I think you're trying to use whatever cutting edge stuff is out there. Was blood spinning, was that cool? Who knows? But, hey, when it was first available, right, guys are going to do it. Why not? UFC question real quick. Can UFC guys get away with PEDs? I think it's a lot harder now. Do I think there's still guys doing it? Yes. I think they cleaned it up a lot, around 14, 15 when they started bringing in the higher level testing. But, I mean, if you look back at fights and physiques and, like, superhuman performances, up until, like, 2013, there were some spots that were just ridiculous. And go back to, like, the Pride era, holy shit. Some of the guys and just their builds and their stamina.
You'd be hard pressed to convince me that our friend who made me go absolutely silent during an interview, War Machine. Yep. I mean, come on.
He was fucked up. He was fucked up, and he was adding more chemicals to a fucked up system. Yeah, Vitor Belfort's the worst example because when Vitor finally had to stop using it, his entire body just deflated.
And that's an example of abuse of it, where they're not monitoring that shit. They're using it to the extent of where it's just fucking them up.
Vitor Belfort was fighting heavyweight at like 220 pounds when he was 19 or 20 years old, and then eventually, was fighting 205 and 185, and some of his 85 fights at the end of his career. I mean, he completely deflated. I mean, his body looked totally different. So, but again, I mean that's an example because not only is it the physical part, but the mental part. If you're going in there and you're going against high class fighters who can literally end you,
yeah.
I would like to look as good as I can, feel like I'm superhuman, and have that mental elixir that I'm okay in here. So I don't blame them. Not for me to judge. But those baseball writers, they'll judge.
Because it's America's pastime.
Yep. This is a great question. Willie and Dave, you got to watch this Tiger Woods documentary.
I've seen it.
I haven't seen it yet. I heard about it.
Oh, you asked me if I'd seen it, and I didn't know what you were talking about.
Oh,
I did. I watched both parts. It's fabulous,
unbelievable.
I thought you were talking about something related to the guy who didn't get the pardon. No. But I did see. I watched both parts. It was compelling viewing, and absolutely should be watched.
But let's not ruin it. But what's your biggest takeaway? What was the thing that kind of blew you away the most?
Ooh. Well, I mean, this is just my take is that there was a really, he's even while he was on top of the world, clearly the best golfer in the world, I think maybe the highest paid athlete in the world, that he kind of was a phony to himself.
Yeah.
And then I think he's emerged from that. I think he's probably a lot better guy now than he was in that time frame, because there was just no reason for him to be doing some of the stuff that he was doing off the golf course. I mean, it's just now, I don't know where the blame for that falls. I know the documentary, without giving it away, seems to maybe make a case that it was his dad's fault,
Right.
that he had a lot of his dad's habits and they spun out of control. I don't know. I mean, I can't say. That might be filmmaker's license, if you will, but I think it's just 2 episodes, so it's not one of those series where you have to tune in every week. It is definitely worth watching.
Willie, for you?
I haven't seen it.
Oh, you haven't seen it?
Adam and Vic were telling me about it tonight at dinner, and now you guys are talking about it, so I definitely gotta check into it. I have the full blown cable package, so I'm hoping that I can pull it up and watch it. Otherwise, I'll probably pay for it now because, I've now heard in one night 4 different people rave about it. My question is, Dave, I'd be interested to hear your take on this. Is Brady? It's on, I believe, HBO Max.
Right.
Considering
I have it all, so I don't know which one it's on.
Considering what Tiger has been ridiculed for, in terms of the off the golf course antics and the adultery and this and that, character-wise, from where we come from, old school, the streets, loyalty, being, who's a worse character off the course, him or Phil Mickelson? And I'm referring to one specific situation.
I knew you were going to go to this.
I know the situation.
You were going here.
Yeah, I mean,
I love this discussion. I love it.
Yeah, it's a tough call. It's a tough call. I mean, there's some things about Tiger and one of them. I'll just come out and say it. Look,
in Vegas,
Tiger Woods,
they are both very disliked figures in Vegas.
Well, but Tiger's is because, I mean, you got a tip, okay? You just got a tip.
That's not nothing to do with it.
I'm sorry. That's just the way it is. Especially if you're here all the time. I'm not saying you don't have to tip ridiculous amounts. You don't have to be Barkley. Barkley is an extraordinarily generous tipper, from what I understand. But just tip a decent amount to the people that are taking care of you, and he just didn't do that. I don't know whether that's changed. I hope it has.
We'll get to it, Willie. Hold on. So, in terms of character, and I'm going to go to snitch, someone you can trust, because Tiger never motherfucked his dad.
No,
when he could have turned on his dad. It was sad. He separated from him. It was like, you got to get out of my life because it's, and a lot of it was, hey, Dad, you're a scumbag. I can't have this coming out. But he never snitched on him, and I never heard him blame all these women like it was their fucking fault. Like, you did what you did.
Right.
Mickelson, though, come on, Willie, right? One of the worst snitches in sports history.
You just let me know. You let me know when I'm ready to go. When I can go, because when I go, it's all over.
Yeah, I know. And this whole thing has been whitewashed. Like, people, look at Phil, good guy. Nah.
I feel bad for his wife and what he went through, but fuck Phil Mickelson in the fact that my guy, who I consider a part of my who took me in, Billy Walters.
Mm-hmm.
And had to do time over a situation that Phil Mickelson was involved in, regardless of what the situation was and who was right, who was wrong. It doesn't fucking matter. And you can fucking just say, okay, I'll give the money back, and then be able to play golf and still be revered by people and fucking loved by fans and lifted up on this pedestal. And yet people have done federal fucking time for the same fucking shit. And this guy's revered by people, yet Tiger is hated because of, and I'm 100% against cheating. I've loved 2 women in my life, and I've been faithful to both of them. And we just got done talking 30 minutes ago, 45 minutes ago. I've been with plenty of strippers. I've ran the streets of Las Vegas, but when I was with the 2 women I love with, I was faithful as fuck, 100%. So I don't agree with adultery, but you're going to judge a man for Tiger for where he rose to, compared to a snitch, a rat in the streets, and you revering this man and putting him up on a pedestal for what he did, and he got away with shit, and a man had to do time. Fuck Phil Mickelson.
I want to throw this out, and I want to get listener reaction. Phil Mickelson's the black guy. Tiger Woods is the white guy.
Yep. Yeah. So, hey, Willie.
Guess who the public pariah would have been?
Yep.
It would have been Phil. And that's where the people who are just ridiculous enough to think that race doesn't matter, you are an asshole if you think that. Because I will guarantee you, I can't prove it, but I will guarantee you, if Phil Mickelson did what he did and was the black guy, and Tiger did what he did and was the white guy, the reactions would have been completely different from what they've been. Completely. 100%. And if you don't believe that, you're an idiot.
So for Casey Chief here, real quick, what did Phil do in terms of insider trading? How much money did he make? And he just got to pay it back. And meanwhile, Billy Walters had to go to jail over. But what was he doing? And then how quickly did he freaking flip on Billy Walters?
So Billy Walters allegedly was involved in security exchange fraud with the CEO of a foods company, and Phil Mickelson invested in it as well. But Phil Mickelson also allegedly owed Billy Walters a lot of fucking money, gambling wise, from golf courses and the sports betting, where, you know, Billy, as I talked to you last time I was on this show with Sports Bets LLC, and Dave, you know this, when runners were involved, Billy did it all. He did everything that he could according to gaming control where it was legit.
Right.
And fucking people would invest. They would give him millions to be part of the crew. Well, I don't know if Phil Mickelson was a part of that, whatever the case was, but in terms of reports and allegations that he was well invested, but he also owed a lot of money, gambling debt. Bottom line was he also invested in this foods company. And when it all came down that there was insider trading, whatever it was and whatever was alleged, the CEO and Phil Mickelson walked. Billy Walters kept his mouth shut and did time. And the motherfucking CEO for the foods company, I don't know what happened to him, but Phil Mickelson basically just said, I'll give my money back. I apologize for the profits he made. He just handed right back over and he walked. Now, he didn't necessarily snitch in terms of saying, here's what happened. He did this and he did that. But he also refused to tell the story. I know that for a fact, that he was asked to tell the story. And there's a lot of facts that he did not tell that he could have, that may have helped Billy's case. And he refused to do so. And he was supposed to be a friend and confidant of Billy Walters for a lot of things that Billy did for him. And I've talked to Billy a number of times since he's been out. He just texted me yesterday, when I texted him, congratulations on being granted clemency before the inauguration. So I'm close with Billy, and there's a lot more that's going to come out. There's a lot of, I've known about this potential clemency. I've known some things, and his right now there's an autobiography that's being written. There's a lot of shit that's going to come out. But the bottom line is, and I'm not talking about like shit that's going to legal stuff that's going to put somebody behind bar. I'm just saying there's a lot of things that haven't been told. But the bottom line is, Phil Mickelson skated by basically just saying, here's the money back. Here you go. I apologize. But he also didn't do anybody any favors when the people that he could have fucking at least been there for, and it wouldn't have damaged him, he could have done something about it. And I feel that's part of that's being a rat in a sense, because you're basically admitting
in a sense
the fucking money back. And he's a punk. And what I don't appreciate is the fact that these fans, these golf fans, and again, I say this with the utmost respect for his wife and what she went through as a survivor. That part I get. But to revere this man and not acknowledge when you degrade Tiger Woods, because again, I don't agree with cheating on the wife, but what I'm saying is when you compare the two from a street sense, where you come from, where I come from, that's a fucking no-no. And he's a fucking snitch, and he's a rat, and he doesn't deserve the fucking the celebration that he gets at times. And he very easily could have, if he didn't turn that money over, he could have been subject of a federal offense. But yet he gets to golf. We got people that are being brought up on fucking drug charges or substance abuse, and they're being suspended from their sport. COVID charges, that they're being fined, whatever the fuck it is. The bottom line is this dude is just not even being recognized as anything doing wrong. Fuck Phil Mickelson.
Strong stuff. Yeah, my one of my big takeaways from the Tiger thing, and I'm not going to give it away, but it's the tearing down of Tiger. And I remember, obviously, Dave and I have been on the air, though, this for a lot of history over the last 25 days, but not longer than I have. But I talked about and I think Dave was still with me. We talked about Tiger's return and the tearing down of Tiger and all the sponsors going bye-bye.
Right.
And I think I was pretty consistent on it. I'm like, listen, to me, the adultery, the womanizing, the adultery part sucks. You shouldn't have gotten married. So that's the biggest sin. And this is between you and your wife. But the tearing down of Tiger was just completely ridiculous. And I had forgotten about, just wait until part 2 when he comes back to the Masters and the head of the Masters is moralizing. It is. Oh. I want Dave. Don't give it away because I'm just telling you, you got to watch it, and you're just like, what the fuck? If that happened now, holy shit! Because people are so much more outspoken on hypocrisy. It was outrageous to watch the finger wagging, amazing, the balls on people. Yeah, man, just watch it. Watch it. I'm telling you, it's a really good documentary, and I don't know. You come out of it.
Pardon me while I live up to my nickname.
Right? Exactly. Yeah.
Smoking Dave Cokin, the Kango Kid.
I don't smoke very much anymore, but once in a while I got to have one.
Who gave you the name the Kango Kid?
Oh yeah, someone did ask that earlier. Yeah.
Seat Williams is renowned, seriously, for being able to come up with a nickname for anybody.
Yes.
He was just great at it. I haven't seen him in a long time. Jeez, I hope he's doing okay.
Seat Williams was the first person to ever put me on the radio at the Stardust line. We talked about this one time.
Yeah. I mean, I'd been on before, but
you were a regular at that time on the Stardust line.
Yeah, but we
to be on
myself started. We had the first. I think we had the first daytime sports show in town at the old studios down on Decatur, and we had a lot of fun.
What was the show, Dave? What was the studio that was on top of was it the Union Plaza? Was it KLAV or something?
No,
Kadon. I sat in one time for him. Once he got comfortable with me and I did the Stardust line, he asked me to go down there and do a show. And I did some show down there at the top of the Union Plaza, went into the studio and just knocked it out. But I just remember going down there when I was with the Sentinel Voice and doing the Stardust. And I'm telling you, I said this last time that the three of us were on a Friday night. And if you got on with Dave, man, it was like a walking encyclopedia, because we would go in that library, that Stardust library, that little handicappers library in that little room. But Dave, there was no fucking internet. You had to print. You came out with the printer paper that had the fucking little tabs on the side with holes all the way down. You had to tear it up, and we'd come in. And Steve would always come in with just like handfuls on both sides of newspapers and printouts, and we'd come in with our shit. Dave would just walk in with the little sports schedule that him and Jim Feist and everybody, and all the Chip Chirimbus, all the old school guys were in the sports schedule, the Nevada sports schedule, the official rotation, and their ads were in there. And that's all he would have in his hand.
I still handicap the same way.
Yeah, see, that's all he had.
I still do everything longhand.
We all had stacks of papers.
The only thing that's happened is I'm not as good with names as I used to be. And we'll forget little details, but I basically have never changed. I was always very good at retaining information. I don't know why. It's just the way I was wired. I've always been really good at retaining information, which is why it bugs me that I can't remember the name of that damn restaurant. It had I think there was an apple on the sign.
I'm gonna have to start asking some people now.
So weird question. Is Feist as angry as he sounds on the radio?
I never thought Jim sounded angry on the radio. Jim's serious guy, but no, Jim's one of the happiest guys I know. Yeah. He's
done okay.
He was always mellow, even on the shows. Yeah.
Jim's background is sensational as well.
Dave, who was the first? Think back to what was the very first panel? Because you guys were the originators. who was
No,
the
I
very
wasn't
first
on the original panel.
who was on the original panel that when that show it was the first network, USA Network, that picked you guys up or picked that show up?
Yes, but that was before me. Show had already been on for a few years before I got into it. Chip Chirimbus, Jim Lee Pete was the host.
Lee Pete
and I can't remember who the other person was. But then I came along. And whoever the other person was, well, they were forgotten at that point.
Then I came along. He pauses.
Well, I was different.
Yeah.
Because I didn't follow the usual pattern. The usual pattern was, major hype.
Yeah.
I got this, I got that. And I've never done that style. I've always been soft sell. Right. Which has worked for me very well over the years because I'm still doing this after 40 years.
Well, I think the difference
between I'm still making a very good living. Okay,
yeah.
So
I think the difference between a lot of those guys, even back then, that came around, Jim, Chip, Lee, like you said, Lee Pete, yourself, whatever, was the only time you really saw them or heard them was on the show. Or in the sports schedule, so on and so forth. There wasn't, or they were a guest, but you were so prevalent. Like when we would go to the, and you had been around longer before I was, but when we go to the boxing press conferences, and we would do, Seat would have those live, but you were there. You always had a media credential. There was something that they appreciated. They respected you beyond the handicapping industry, and you got media credentials, so you were always more involved. So you didn't have to.
I had the best seats. Well, I wrote a boxing column. I did the ESPN international, the Top Rank international feeds for a few years, where I'd go wherever Top Rank was going, and they wouldn't use my voice, but they would, if they were broadcasting in another country, I would provide the play-by-play, and they translate off that.
Yeah,
it was a cool gig, and it was pretty good money, and I had a lot of fun.
That's what I'm saying. So you didn't really have to go on TV or whatever and yell and scream and do the hype and absolutely free and Stu Feiner the hell out of everybody.
No, wouldn't have worked for me anyway. I don't have that kind of personality. I'm not exactly an over-the-top individual.
And by the way, Steve, I can confirm back to the start of the show that there were a couple of times at the Stardust when we would show up and Dave would show up. There were not every time, but I do remember a couple of times when I would be on the show and he would be on there, and whoever the lady that he might have been seeing, the stripper, and he would show up. Dave had some fine ass bitches show up with him a few times at the Stardust. They'd sit front row right there and they were top notch. I will say that. I remember that.
So was I. I never had to worry about low T. Now I just drink green tea.
Well, I didn't have to worry about that shit either in 1991, but Jesus Christ.
I still don't, but nobody cares anymore. That's what I knew. I knew things were changing when I got I got a 2004 Mercedes SL 500 convertible. Unbelievable. I mean, this car was amazing. And that's when I knew they weren't they'd look at the car and then they'd look at me and it's like, okay, nice car.
Dave, I still get a kick out of when people. I still get a kick when people bring up buildings or areas and they talk about it like, that they remember when this opened and that opened, and I think and I look at them to correct them and tell, like, people bring up Sapphires. I said that was the Sporting House. I remember going there as the Sporting House, or down on we talked about this earlier on Industrial across from the fashion show. Sunny Saloon was Sunny Duddy's, but Sunny's was across the street.
Sunny's
where the parking garage
and the Chinese restaurant in there.
Yeah,
was
but it was
great.
across the street.
It was fantastic.
And Sunny Saloon was where Funny Guys were.
All the locals went over there.
Yes,
they had they had the best black bean sauce. Oh God, it was just and the place
that whole
total dump. I mean, the booths had tears in them and stuff like that, and nobody cared.
That whole plaza to the right of Sunny Saloon now was, an industrial plaza. And at the end, there was a huge telemarketing room where a lot of the big telemarketers back in the day, they would work from like 6 to 2, and then they'd go down to Fuddy's and they'd have drinks till 5. And then they decided, the Greek, that's what they called him, Pete Iliadis, the Greek, he decided he wanted a nightclub, and he brought in his son-in-law, Gary Casio, and they created this nightclub. in 1991, I want to say, and that's when it just kind of blew up from there. And then now it's Sunny Saloon. They moved Sunny's just across the street, and now there's a parking garage, and Fashion Show is what it is. Fashion Show was tiny. It was small back then. It was just one strip. And Boulevard Mall was still cool to go to, and the Meadows was the Meadows. Meadows was the outskirts, and now they call it the Ghettos Mall, of course. But, that was – anyway. I could continue. There's not one conversation that we can have that I can't turn into an old school Vegas conversation.
You start going crazy. The names. You remember them though. That's good stuff. Real good stuff. All right. Well, guys, we'll wrap on that. Real quick, and we'll do like 2 minutes here. Sorry if people are tuning in just for handicapping, but Dave, you and I talked on the show today on Cofield and Company about how tight the lines are now, and if you're going to do anything. So, are you in or out for the championship games? You got anything?
I took the Bucks plus 3.5.
Okay.
I don't think I'm going to play the other game because I just don't know. I don't know how good Mahomes is going to be. If he's healthy, Mahomes, and can operate at full level in terms of his mobility, I don't think I want to go against the Chiefs. But I don't know if he is or not. He's been limited in practice. It's not the concussion; it's the toe.
Right.
So I think I'll stay out of that one. I took the Bucks. We'll see what happens. One of my most respected friends, who's a very sharp NFL bettor, likes the Packers. So, and the NFL is not my best sport. So, take what I say with a grain of salt, or maybe
Dave, you don't do in game.
Not much. It's not really. Look, it's a losing proposition unless you're really good at it because you're paying heavy vig.
Yep.
And the math is going to get you. Live betting. I mean, I don't have the breakdown of the numbers in New Jersey.
Yep.
But I will speculate, as one who knows about this stuff, that part of the reason they're doing so incredibly well there is the live betting is off the hook back there from what I gather.
Yep. That's why they're holding so much.
They're making a ton of money in live betting. Listen, if you can do that much action, and steal is the right word. It is the right word.
Yeah.
Steal that much value from bettors who aren't very good in terms of value, you're going to make a lot of money.
We talked about it today on Cofield and Company. Von Tobel had it that Penn National, now that Barstool is the branding out front, I think this last month their hold was 19%.
Yeah.
So
you can't do 19% on just straight bets.
No.
So a lot of that, a ton of it's coming from live betting, and because they're holding a much bigger percentage just to begin with.
Minus 115. Yep.
Yeah.
To start.
That's and it's a lot bigger than that. On a lot watch the in games this weekend.
Oh yeah.
You'll see dramatic differences between the favorite and the dog.
Oh yeah. There was
especially on money line in-game betting. It's going to be it's
crazy because people don't know. Willie, what do you got on the games?
I like the Buccaneers. I do not think that the cold weather is going to affect Brady and Gronk. I think that they're going to dictate the pace, and I think that these guys are going to adapt. They're going to be fine as long as the wind doesn't pick up. And last I checked on NFLweather.com, it's not supposed to get over 10 miles per hour. So as long as the wind is not affecting them, they will be the team personnel will have them prepared to play in that weather. And these guys they come from different areas and different colleges where they played in cold weather. So they're going to buck up. This is the NFC Championship game. They're going to play. So I do like the dog in this game. The other one, I don't know. You don't know what to expect from Mahomes. I think Buffalo comes in with this energized charge within them that they're going to leave it all on the field. I'm a little sketchy in terms of, you have 1 week, you have Josh Allen proving everybody wrong. And the next week you have the Buffalo Bills offense looking like absolute dog shit. So I think the inconsistency is where there's a question mark because you don't know who's going to show up at the same time. You could say the exact same thing about Kansas City's defense alone. They've shown improvement at sometimes. They've shown that they don't give a shit on defense because their offense can outperform the other team. So I think it's a crapshoot in that one. I might lean toward the over a little bit, but at this, I'd much rather feel where I'm comfortable in playing the Tampa Bay Buccaneers plus the points because of the fact that, I think that they're fine with I think the weather's not going to play as big of a deal as you think because these guys are going to be prepared to play in that weather. And I think that's the best play on the board overall is the Buccaneers plus the points. I think it comes down to possibly who has the ball last. And I just would leave the other one alone. I mean, if you're looking, there's 2 games. That means there's 4 plays. And we're not all trying, if we could all pick both sides and both totals, we'd be playing parlays for days. And we all know those are sucker bets. You need one play. So to me, the Buccaneers is the best play out of all 4. 2 sides, 2 totals. The Bucs is the best play.
I like the NFC winner to win the Super Bowl, whichever team comes out. I think the 2 best teams remaining are Tampa and Green Bay, and I think they're very close.
The Bucs secondary, I see someone say the Bucs secondary is worrisome. It's true, but
yeah, but you can't run on them.
But the other thing is you're gauging that on an entire season, and there have been times where you have to pick out their absolute best. Why? Because they're focused on one game. It's one game. It's not about that they have there's another game after this. This is one game. They have to prepare for this fucking game. They got to prepare for the Packers, and we've seen that they can step up against high-powered teams at times. That defense, they looked like dog shit at the beginning, and they improved as the season.
They didn't. But they didn't look like dog shit when they played Green Bay the first time.
Yes,
I will tell you, Rodgers will have a better game than he had in the regular season matchup, which was one of the worst games he's ever played.
And balance.
He'll do better than that.
Balance is going to be key. Which team can, move the chains between the 40s? Which team can sustain some clock? And which team can go up top when it's time to go up top? And yes, the Packers are good, but Tampa Bay has improved down the stretch. They have become a very good team, balanced on offense, and their defense has improved. So I just, like I said, if it was supposed to be crazy windy with the 26-degree weather and the wind chill kicks in and that wind's whisking across the field, big difference. 10 miles is not a big deal. It's the chill that's not going to make an effect, and I think it comes down to experience. I think it comes down to the fact that Brady and Gronk have done this.
Cold. I mean, look, cold is when it's 0, and the effect is like it's minus 20.
That's what I'm saying. It's not going to make a big deal to them. It's not going to affect them. These guys are coming in. These are professional. These are $1 million athletes. These teams are going to have their players prepared to play in 26-degree weather. So, I mean, we're Adam and myself and everybody else that's sitting on press row at T-Mobile are wondering when the fuck they're going to let fans in so they can absorb some of the chill coming off that goddamn ice. It's cold in that bitch.
Yeah. Hey, Arizona had fans tonight.
Yes, they did.
What, 10, 15% maybe? So it was just like
3,500.
Yeah, so it was just like a regular home game for the Coyotes. Hey, no 56-0. Sorry, I have to settle for 55-1. Golden Knights look good so far. They got a real nice team. They didn't play very well tonight, but nobody's perfect. And
Adam and I
think they'll get him in the rematch.
We disagreed at dinner about. I thought personally that they should have come out yesterday and practiced right off the big win. Off the big 5-2 win, they should have come right back in practice. But DeBoer gave them the night off, and then they went hard this morning at morning skate in Arizona, where I thought they should have went hard yesterday, and then went out there and got ready with the nice little morning skate.
But, it's just another regular season game.
Yeah, they came out flat. They came out.
I will tell you that tomorrow's practice is probably going to be a little more spirited. They didn't play very well tonight.
I think Sunday's game they're going to come right back. I mean, people that are sitting there going, "Oh fuck, they look like shit." Well, Jesus, they're not going to, like Dave said, they're not going to.
They weren't terrible. They had a lot of chances tonight. They just didn't finish off passes, and they just didn't have a great game. But they're a nice team.
Yeah.
All right, guys.
It'll be fun to cover them.
Good job. We'll wrap it. We'll talk to you guys on Monday. Excellent job, Willie. Thanks to Dave.